film Rango, the fully animated feature film from ILM, has just been nominated in 4 separate categories for the VES Awards. So as part of our studio profile series, we thought, let's have a look at what it's like to work at ILM in the animation department. In a second, we'll speak to Maia, who is a senior animator inside ILM. She's a full-time regular staff member, and we have a look at her job, her role as a character animator, both in terms of the film Rango, but also in many of the other films that she's worked on. She's worked on Pirates of the Caribbean, she's worked on some really big blockbuster VFX films right now. Hopefully this will give you an insight what it's like to be somebody inside a major company as significant as ILM. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So when did you join ILM?
It was about 10 years ago, in 2001.
And how did you come to work at ILM? What made you decide to apply here?
I remember the moment when I saw Jurassic Park, and I was really fascinated with the idea of making these fictional characters and making them look so real on the screen. That was the moment where it really perked my interest in computer animation, and I decided to go into electronic arts and apply to different schools.
If you were talking to a young person who maybe was interested in someday working at ILM on big blockbuster films, what sort of artistic stuff do you think they can do at that early stage?
I think drawing and painting is always a good thing, but it's also great to really start sculpting things and getting used to the 3D idea and really get a feel whether that's something that interests a person or not. There are so many tools out there right now, and I think one of the most popular ones are probably, like you mentioned, Photoshop, and there's ZBrush, which seems to be a very popular tool. And it's good to probably get started and used to the whole 3D imaging.
As you're animating, you're giving a character personality, but you're also working very much with the voice performance of the actor that provided it. Could you discuss, that sort of fact that an animated character almost has 2 actors providing a performance, the animator and the voice talent?
Animating on characters was usually a process of using reference, studying body language, and on Rango it was a very interesting process in the sense that we got a lot of reference from the actors. And the voice performance that the actors gave us was great. It gave us a lot to go off on. And their voice had such a richness in it that really, their voice inflections really gave us a good idea and clue of what the mood or what the mindset would be of a certain character. So we also got some reference clips of the performance of the actors that we would use as a guideline or cues from it. And we would also shoot reference of our own. Sometimes Gore would even act out scenes in dailies and just act out certain performances. So we would shoot reference of that. And oftentimes we just used a combination of all these materials that we gathered and drew our interpretation from that. Usually to shoot voice performance, the actors are in their individual booth, never interacting with anybody else and recording their voices. Whereas in this approach, it was very interesting because the actors were all on the stage together with props and costume and interacting with each other, which I think was a very efficient way to really capture good performances. And it was incredibly helpful for us because we got some really, really good reference clips from the actors already that really gave us great cues and worked as a great guideline.
I guess the other thing is, even if you're shooting reference of yourself or anyone else, they're people. Right? If you're doing character animation, it's not as easy as just seeing something in yourself and then putting it into the character. You've got to get the truth for that character, not just sort of copy and paste a thing that another character or you yourself might do.
Yeah, it's the difficult thing with animation when we shoot reference is that sometimes, and this is a subtle and subconscious thing, but there's a tendency between all animators to put a part of ourselves in there, our own mannerisms, which is funny because oftentimes we will recognize each other's work or signature between us peers. And it's really interesting how that happens. It's a subconscious thing, but it is definitely something that we try to be aware of. So when we shoot our reference, or even look for reference, we like to find a lot of different kind of reference. And then we collect all those, and based on our own interpretation or how we see things, that we try to use ideas and cues from the different references or as guidelines and animate something based on that. But it helps us do an interpretation of what that character really would be.
I know you're working on big budget visual effects at the moment, but it sounds like you might like to do another animated feature sometime?
I'd love that. It was a wonderful experience. Working with Gore was great. He was a director who really knew how to inspire the crew, and he had a vision. He was a very hands-on director. He would come to ILM very frequently and develop a great relationship with the artists. And overall, just we loved the story from the very beginning. When he first presented the story, we were all fascinated by the designs. I remember us walking in a big room, and they hung up all these different designs on the walls, and we were all looking at each other and pretty much felt the same. It felt like we were walking in a candy store, and all we were just thinking, we couldn't wait to animate these amazing designs. So it was definitely the 2 years that we were on there. It was probably for me one of the best experiences in my career.
Is there an example of any recent films that were visual effects that you really enjoyed working on?
I think for me, one of my high points, or one of my favorite visual effects projects that we worked on, was probably Pirates of the Caribbean. In part just because I was able to help develop the look of Davy Jones, and that was a very interesting task because it was something so new. It was this octopus guy with this funny muzzle, and we were trying to interpret Bill Nighy's face. So that was a neat challenge, and we really wanted it to make very realistic. So that was probably one of my high points that I really enjoyed. It never gets boring. You're always doing something completely different, and it's also an incredible learning experience because you get to experiment with so many different animation styles and characters and acting versus action. So it's really one of the big perks of working here at ILM, that every project is so different. And every time you're also together with a different director, and it's a different crew, and it's just a whole different atmosphere every time, and I love that.
Well, thanks so much for taking time to talk to us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
No other company in our industry has won more visual effects Oscars or technical Oscars than ILM. It's been the backbone of our industry for decades now. It's an incredibly important company, though fully animated character feature films is relatively new even for ILM. We hope you've enjoyed this look behind the scenes of one of the jobs inside ILM. There'll be more of these studio profiles here at FX PhD. I'm Mike Seymour. See you.